transform Arrakis into a paradise. Stilgar then tells Jessica that their spiritual leader is on her way out for good, and suggests Jessica should take a shot at the job of the Reverend Mother by drinking the extremely lethal water of life, a substance that's drained out of infant sandworms. Only it's not just any poison, it's supposed to be super lethal to men and anyone not prepared for it. Jessica is initially hesitant, but drinks the liquid and somewhat pulls off a miracle. She survives, and suddenly she's got the memories of her female ancestors at her fingertips. However, Jessica was not really supposed to drink the water of life because she was pregnant, and the water of life kinda kicks her unborn daughter's brain into overdrive, but more on that later. So what happens is that the fetus gains sentience, and Jessica and her in-womb daughter start having some deep spiritual conversations. She figures the folks in the north of Arrakis need a little convincing about this prophecy, targeting the easily swayed first. Meanwhile, Cheney and her friend Shishakli ridicule the whole prophecy thing until Paul speaks about not wanting the throne. In fact, he says that all he wants is to fight alongside the Fremen. That earns him some street cred and, of course, respect with Cheney. Additionally, Stilgar shows unwavering support for Paul and pitches him to his Fremen people at every opportunity he gets. Meanwhile, Paul starts getting the hang of living with the Fremen. He even learns to speak their language, spends time alone in the desert to become one with it, but his real challenge remains riding a sandworm. If he does that, he pretty much becomes an OG Fremen, and quite deserving of leading the Fremen in their struggle for freedom. Quite unsurprisingly, he hops on a giant sandworm and rides it like a pro. Even the likes of Stilgar remain shocked at the size of the sandworm, with one woman calling it the grandfather worm. Following this, he and Cheney hit it off, turning his love life up a notch, which was a much-awaited development, to be honest. As he takes down Harkonnen spice operations with the Fremen, they start calling him Muad'Dib, which was his war name, and Usul, which was his Fremen name. Meanwhile, Jessica was doing her Reverend Mother duties and trying to amp the whole religion around them. In the Harkonnen who was back on Gedi Prime. You see, Rabban knew that he had to protect the spice production and trade, or else his stint as the head of Dune was over. The Baron, not happy with Rabban's slip-ups, hands Arrakis over to his other nephew, Feyd-Rautha. We soon meet Feyd-Rautha, who loved trying his hand at gladiator-style fights for fun, but he preferred if his opponents were drugged and defenseless as well, and in case Paul's line went bust, they had a second option in Feyd-Rautha. Additionally, he was supposed to become the heir to Baron Harkonnen, so it was all the more important for them to control Feyd-Rautha. Brings him back, but something changes in Paul once he comes back. You see, now he's got an even sharper view of the past and future, including a vision of his sister Aaliyah, who's still pretty much a fetus. However, the real shocker was that Baron Harkonnen was his maternal grandfather, a secret that even Lady Jessica didn't know until she consumed the water of life. Some of the southern Fremen were hoping Paul would square off with Stilgar for leadership, but Paul had reached a place that was above all that. Embracing his destiny as the Messiah, the Lisan al-Gaib, he's like, nah, Stilgar's too solid to take down. So he steps away and takes charge without any drama and decides to take on the Emperor himself, who, by the way, had arrived on Arrakis with his posse and some heavy-duty troops called the Sardaukar. Paul's plan was to launch nukes at the Emperor's stronghold and ride in on sandworms with the Fremen. It all goes well, more or less, and the Fremen make mincemeat out of the Emperor's elite soldiers. Meanwhile, Gurney kills Rabban and nobody complains about it. In the end, Paul confronts his grandfather, the Baron, takes him out, and then turns to the Emperor, who was the one who actually orchestrated the death of Leto Atreides. He's like, surrender the throne or I'll nuke the spice to oblivion. It was now that the Emperor chose Feyd-Rautha as his champion. The two of them engage in a fight that fans have been waiting for so very long to see. So Feyd-Rautha does his best in trying to kill Paul and does a good amount of damage. But Paul was a super being of sorts, and naturally, it takes more than Harkonnen sociopathy to kill such beings. Naturally, Paul kills Feyd-Rautha, but does earn his respect in the process. Irulan, seeing the writing on the wall, throws her lot in with Paul and offers marriage and the throne in return for her father's life. Next thing we know, the Emperor, cornered, bows down to Paul's new reign. Cheney wasn't thrilled about Paul's political marriage, and what? Back at base, Jessica and the yet-to-be-born Aaliyah prepare for the start of the Muad'Dib crusade, knowing things are about to get crazy and violent real fast. Anyway, welcome Paul's ascent. While he was duking it out, all these major players were orbiting Arrakis, all because the Emperor wanted them to be present there. After Paul claims victory, he tells Gurney to spread the word he's the boss now in his name. After tasting the water of life, Paul's all in, focused on conquering the Empire no matter the cost to Fremen lives. This is a bit of a tweak from the books, where Paul's stance on letting the Fremen fight his holy war is a bit different. Normally, this whole war starts off between the events of Dune and Dune Messiah, which the movie named the Paul problem. However, we saw that the problem was grander than what the Emperor had presumed. The interesting thing that happens in the movie is that Paul's army gets a boost from those Fremen Southern fundamentalists, installments of the movie. They capture the capital, and Paul personally takes out the Baron. Interestingly enough, in the book, it's Aaliyah who kills the Baron, although she hasn't been born yet by the end of this movie. Phew!